A recent blockbuster movie made me want to dive back into a series I grew up with, and I made a recent purchase that's a total game changer. This and more with Play and Tell. What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Play and Tell. I'm your host, Xander Skullion, where I talk about games I've been playing, leave little short impressions, little mini reviews, and most importantly, when you walk away, you have something new to play. Now, recently, I watched the new Mortal Kombat movie, and if you guys want to know my thoughts and opinions, definitely check out the new episode of Blast Podcasting I did with my good friend Anthony, aka Magnus X1. I'll have a link on the description below so you guys can check out that episode on YouTube. But after watching the movie, it made me want to go back and play some Mortal Kombat. So of course I fired up MAME. I started playing the original Mortal Kombat, and this game, I can play it all the time. This is one of those games that's just like such a comfort food. I can play this for 5 minutes. I can play it for 5 hours. Maybe not 5 hours. I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but I can play this game for a certain period of time regardless and have a fun time. But I wanted more. I wanted to dive deeper into the archives of Mortal Kombat. So I decided to play a game that honestly, you don't hear enough people talk about. I went and dived into the archives and played Mortal Kombat 4 Gold on the Sega Dreamcast, which in my opinion is the definitive way to play Mortal Kombat 4 because it's got a larger roster, and of course the game looks a lot better on the Sega Dreamcast than it did on the PlayStation N64. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because, when Mortal Kombat 4 came out, the series is getting kind of stagnant with people, but even longtime Mortal Kombat fans don't talk about Mortal Kombat 4. It's like the redheaded stepchild of the series. You have more people that will talk and rag on Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero mythologies, or even Mortal Kombat Special Forces, but when it comes to Mortal Kombat 4, it's radio silent. And it's kind of a shame because I do remember playing Mortal Kombat 4 in the arcades. My friend Mikey would be playing DDR, and I would be over in the corner playing Mortal Kombat 4 or Tekken Tag Tournament. And even back then, many people didn't play Mortal Kombat 4. They played Tekken more than anything else. So going back and playing it on, the Sega Dreamcast, a console that's infamous for having a wide plethora of fighting games, it was a sight to behold. Now, I will say Mortal Kombat 4 is underrated. I think it's a pretty decent fighting game. It's not one of the best Mortal Kombats whatsoever. And something I will point out is, I don't know what it was, but the programming in Mortal Kombat 4 and Mortal Kombat 3 was guilty of it as well. It's a very slippery game. I feel like every fighter has Vaseline on the bottom of their shoes. I don't know what it is, but it's just like, it's very slippery. But, Mortal Kombat 4 was introducing some new elements to the series that we had never seen before. The introduction of 3D, and also the introduction of using weapons and using elements in the stages to your advantage. Picking up a severed head and throwing it at someone was just very, very satisfying. But, it is a shame that a lot of folks don't play Mortal Kombat 4 enough. And I will say, if you're like me and you watch the new Mortal Kombat movie and you're like, man, I want to play some Mortal Kombat, but I want to do something a little different than playing the first 3 games, check out Mortal Kombat 4. Just go and play it, and play Mortal Kombat 4 Gold on the Sega Dreamcast. Fight. I have to admit, I was so much in a Mortal Kombat mood that I went on Amazon and I bought these Mortal Kombat face masks. Yeah, I went and got a Scorpion face mask, which is a little bigger than I expected.
That's what she said!
I didn't expect it to be as big as it is. Scorpion's my favorite character, but I have to say I'm not as big of a fan of this mask as I am the Sub-Zero mask. I feel like the Sub-Zero mask is a little cooler, but regardless, it is kind of cool going into a store and seeing people do a double take because they're like, holy crap, Sub-Zero's over there buying fabric softener right now. Now, you guys know I absolutely love cheap Nintendo Switch games. I will go through the eShop and I will just go through every single game with a fine-tooth comb and find that game that's super cheap that looks really, really interesting. And honestly, I have found some great gems doing so. One game in particular that I definitely want to talk about that just came out recently is Savage Halloween. Savage Halloween is a run-and-gun shooter, very reminiscent of games like Contra and Journey of Silius. If you grew up playing those games, you know what you're getting yourself into. But it also has some stages that are side-scrolling shooters as well, which would make me reminiscent of games like Magical Chase or Gradius. I mean, I really did enjoy this game, and also, I mean, it's set in the Halloween theme. I mean, nothing says cool than playing as a character with a pumpkin head and a sawed-off shotgun. And for $3, man, for $3, this was definitely something that really surprised me. Now, the game, it definitely has its challenge, but it's a lot of fun. It's retro hard. If you know what I mean. It's one of those games you have to memorize character patterns. You have to kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But once you get the hang of it, especially with the controls can be a little wonky, but take it for what it is. This is a $3 game, and it is really, really good. You guys definitely need to check it out. Now, another cheap Nintendo Switch game that I think a lot of people are just going to skim over just from the name alone is Space Warrior. Space Warrior sounds like a generic shampoo conditioner that you would get at Dollar Tree. Space Warrior does not sound appealing whatsoever. The cover art doesn't look appealing whatsoever. The price tag being $5 is probably going to make people apprehensive to check this game out, but I will tell you guys, first and foremost, definitely play this game. This game right here, if you're a fan like myself of side-scrolling shooters, this is something to play. If you like space shooters, this is something to play. And they did something a little different. One thing I want to point out is I feel like they added a little bit of quality of life to the genre. If you guys have played side-scrolling shooters, then you guys know that, you're constantly pushing a button, or if you have rapid fire, you're constantly holding your finger on a button. Well, in this game, the ship auto shoots, which I have to admit, at first, I wasn't a big fan of. I did not like that. I'm like, can I turn this off? This is kind of weird. This feels very, very strange. But the more I played it, the more I was like, wow, I can actually focus on the projectiles and other spaceships shooting at me and not really have that constant thinking of shoot, because I'm going to be shooting anyway. So I thought that was really cool. Also, the power-ups, I think, are very, very brilliant in the sense that you collect different orbs that build up into your power-ups that you can bank or you can use right then and there by using the face buttons, the X, Y, Z, and B and A. So I thought that was really cool. And, the more I played this game, the more I was just really enjoying it, because you can go through the game, you can go from point A to point B, but you could also upgrade your ships by doing certain objectives in the game. Certain achievements will help you unlock more ships. To me, that is brilliant. That has so much replay value that, honestly, for $5, this is definitely a game that you guys need to check out. I know that the name Space Warrior just does not sound appealing, but man, Space Warrior, it's pretty good. Now, you guys know I'm a huge fan of retro and emulation, and I'm maybe in a minority by saying that I don't mind the NES and SNES games on the Nintendo Switch with the online service. But admittedly, I don't play a whole lot of NES games on the Nintendo Switch, and a lot of that is because of the control scheme. Like, say if you're playing with the Pro Controller, you can only use B and A, which is great if you were playing with the NES controller, but it feels really weird playing a 4-button layout. I'm more of a B and Y kind of person than a B and A kind of person. I know, it may not bother some people, it bothers me. So for the longest time, I didn't play NES games on the Nintendo Switch, even if I wanted to check them out. I was like, I just don't feel like playing it because I don't like the controllers. Until now, because I went on Nintendo Online, bit the bullet for $60 and bought the Nintendo Switch NES controllers. Now, essentially, these are Joy-Cons, and I will get into that. But what makes these really interesting is being made from Nintendo, these are NES controllers. Like, I held onto them, and I was just like holding the buttons and the plastic, and I was like, oh my god, these are NES controllers. And you got to understand, I've played a lot of aftermarket NES controllers through emulation with 8-bit dough, which make really great controllers, but there's always something a little off. There's always something a little different. When these right here, the only thing that's different is you don't have a cord. Even the weight, it feels about as heavy as an NES controller. And I remember my girlfriend came over and I was like, hey, I have 2 controllers. We need to get some beer and play some Mario 3. This is awesome. And I've been playing so much more NES on the Nintendo Switch, and it just feels great. The latency is right there. I mean, there's no input lag. It plays just like playing the NES. And wow, these are absolutely amazing. But there's more, because you guys know I love emulation. So I had these synced up to my Raspberry Pi, and playing NES or Famicom Disk System games with an NES controller officially by Nintendo on the Raspberry Pi is a certain new level of bliss. I have to admit, I have Resident Evil Village, but I have not been playing it as much because when I get off work, I've been just firing up the Raspberry Pi, playing it with an NES controller, and just having this like intoxicating feeling of nostalgia. I cannot recommend it enough. And I mean, I know some people may think $60 for 2 controllers is kind of pricey, but honestly, it's cheaper than buying 2 Joy-Cons. And $60 for a controller is kind of the norm today. So if you're a big fan of retro gaming, you definitely need to go on Nintendo Online and check these out and buy them. You will not be disappointed. Now, the only caveat to these controllers, because they are Joy-Cons, they don't have USB-C ports. So you can't charge them unless you hook them up to the Nintendo Switch. And this is like the biggest eyesore I have ever seen. This looks like a monstrosity. And it's playable. You can play the games like this. You can use the D-pad and the B&A vertically. Very weird. But that's probably my only caveat, and the reason why I say that is because, you know, when you hook them up to the Nintendo Switch like that, they sync to the Switch, so if you want to do something like go to the Raspberry Pi, you will have to resync Bluetooth and get the controllers back working on the Raspberry Pi. But, I mean, to be honest, these controllers, being Joy-Cons, the battery life lasts so long. So it might be something that you do maybe once a month if you're a crazy retro enthusiast that loves to play NES games on the Raspberry Pi using an official NES controller, like some people, like myself. But but I mean, let's just take a moment to look at this. This is so freaking weird. But anyway, guys, those are some games I've been playing recently. What have you been playing? Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and opinions on some of the titles I even mentioned. And what is your favorite Mortal Kombat game? Leave a comment below. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, but also hit that bell so you're notified on all future videos that come out on this channel. Anyway, guys, as always, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, happy gaming.